Well, science clearly points that it is a new reality we're in for human development. And the causes behind this is that we are in a situation where we have global change processes occurring much faster than previously, and we have a tremendous development challenge in a world committed to 9 billion people.
You took one example. The tipping point could be affecting the Amazon zone.
Yes, that's one of those critical hotspots in the world, that climate change, which increases temperatures and which is drying out the Amazon, combined with land use change, deforestation, together, these might push the Amazon to a point where it tips over towards an uncontrollable process towards becoming a savanna. And that would destroy freshwater supplies, it would destroy livelihoods in 9 countries in Latin America, but it would also have an implication on the climate system across Africa and China, because the climate systems on the planet are interconnected. So if the whole vapor pump is taken away from the Amazonas, you in fact affect the whole planet. So we're interconnected in a situation where we now need to be responsible for all systems on Earth, and the Amazon is one of them.
And the facts are alarming now in the Amazon.
The facts are increasingly alarming. There's been and remains a high degree of uncertainty, but 2005 and 2010 are the most pronounced drought years ever recorded in the Amazon. The deforestation pace, even though it's decreased slightly, is still very high, and it's breaking up the Amazon, so you get much more dry corridors in the system. And therefore, and science is showing that the system might be more vulnerable than we previously thought. So yes, this is a serious, it's an example of an area we need to invest in sustainable land forest management.
And the largest part of the Amazon is in Brazil and in Rio next year. You have the next summit on environment.
Which is very appropriate that one of the large hotspots is in one of the, not only that Brazil was the host of the 1992 Rio conference, which was the start of sustainable development in its modern policy form. It's also a country which today is a very powerful and good example of positive economic and social development, which can take a responsibility for the Amazon. And with a president that today is increasingly willing to consider the stewardship of the Amazon as an international concern, not only as a nation-state concern. And I think that's a very positive development.
And Stockholm Environmental Institute is based in Stockholm, which was the takeoff for the first Environment Summit.
That's right. The Stockholm Conference on Environment Development was held in Stockholm in 1972, which was the launch of the United Nations Environment Programme. ECI was born in the run-up to the Rio Conference in 1992 in the 80s as an initiative by the Swedish government. And yes, the next conference will be held 40 years after Stockholm, and as an opportunity to recognize the fact that we are in a new reality, and we therefore have to rethink how we do environment and development and the connections between the two.
And we also heard a launch of a new idea, a World Environment Organization, instead of the birth of UNEP that was 40 years ago.
Yes, this is a long-standing discussion, of course, that UNEP, in all its importance, is the weakest United Nations program, because it doesn't have the mandate and therefore not the teeth to really go in and so say drive policy and be a follow-up agency on policy implementation. Transforming UNEP into a World Environment Organization would be one way of strengthening its mandate within the UN family, which on the long term would be positive. The trick is, of course, that it may take a long time to get there.
But you talk about a new reality. Isn't this a very, very urgent question?
Oh yes, it is. And that's why I can tell you there's a huge complexity here, that the head of UNEP, Achim Steiner, himself hesitates to promote the World Environment Organization too much, because he feels that the urgency also requires that UNEP can operate over the next 10 years. If you start a process towards a World Environment Organization, you might suddenly have a long transition period, which would be difficult. So this is a lot of politics here.
Yes, but as you see it, a new reality, what is needed?
Well, a new reality clearly needs a much stronger collaboration among the world's nations on environment. it needs a much closer realization or an insight that environment and development are totally interconnected, which requires a stronger global governance, but it also requires that regional and national and local community levels interconnect and collaborate. So it's not only about world global governance, but we need to strengthen that level also.
But do you think that the world is ready to take this step now?
Yes, I think so. I think the world in 2012 might very well be ready to take a leap into the unknown and experiment with the new institutional arrangements, because we realize that we've largely failed so far.